Hello my friends, today we're gonna make a really fat future bounce drop like Brooks in FL Studio. We're gonna start by making some emotional chords. Then we're gonna chop up the chords and make a nice bouncy rhythm. After that we're gonna make a melody in the same rhythm as the chords. Now that we're done with the composing, let's start on building a fat drop. If we wanna make a really powerful drop like Brooks, we're gonna have to make a very vibrant and full lead. So let's do just that. We're gonna begin with this lead shot sample playing the lead melody. Then we're gonna add some more lead samples as well as some serum layers to make the lead bigger. Now guys, to make the lead more bouncy, we're gonna add all the lead layers to a mixing track, and we're gonna make a volume automation that goes down like this. Then we're gonna place this volume automation every time a note in the lead melody hits. This is what it sounds like without the volume automation. And this is with. To make the lead a bit bigger, we're gonna add a very short reverb with a very short decay time, which adds a bit more space. And we're gonna make this reverb automation to stop the reverb when the lead gets bouncy. After that we're gonna add a longer reverb with a normal decay time, and we're gonna control the normal reverb with this reverb automation. Now guys, we have a decent sounding lead, but we need it to sound a lot fatter and more vibrant. And we're gonna do that by adding quite a bit of distortion as well as some other mixing effects. The first thing we'll do is to drag this knob a bit to the right. This will make the lead a bit more mono, and that's nice because we want the lead to be in the center of the mix. We're gonna begin by adding compression with OTT, which gives the lead some more power. After that we're gonna add an EQ to shape the lead to what we want. Then we're gonna add a decent amount of distortion using Camel Crusher. Another EQ, then another Camel Crusher, which adds a good amount of compression and just a bit more distortion. Then even more distortion with Fruity Fast Dist, a final EQ to shape the lead one last time, and lastly a sound goodizer to add even more power. This, my friends, is what the lead sounded like before the mixing. And this is after we added the mixing effects. I think it sounds a lot more powerful now, which is what we want. We're also gonna add another lead layer playing some harmonies. Nice. Now guys and gals, we're gonna make a powerful and bouncy bass line that fits well with the lead. We're gonna begin with a serum bass layer, playing the bass line from the chords we made earlier. Then we're gonna add quite a few additional bass layers to make the bass fatter. It's important to add bass layers that sound different from each other so that we fill out the bass with a lot of different frequencies. That will make it sound fat. The last layer I added was just a basic sub-bass layer. We're also gonna add a dubstep growl type sound on top, playing the bass line to add some energy. When we're gonna mix the bass, we want to add more power, but also make it crisper and more pleasant to listen to. Let's start by mixing the mid-bass layers. We're gonna begin by adding an EQ, removing a lot of the highs because we don't want the bass to clash with the lead. Then we're gonna add a lot of compression with OTT. Then another EQ to remove some ugly high frequencies created by the OTT. Compression and distortion with Camel Crusher. EQ, a sound goodizer for some more power, and a final EQ to shape the bass to what we want. Lastly, I added a Fruity Stereo Shaper to make the mid-bass a bit wider in the mix. We want the lead to be in the center of the mix and the mid-bass to be a bit more to the side. This is what the mid-bass sounds like without the mixing effects. And this is with. Now let's quickly beef up the sub-bass layer. We're gonna take it from this to this. We'll do that by adding distortion with Fruity Fastest, OTT, Soundgoodizer, and an EQ removing the highs and high mids. This is what the full bass line sounds like after we mixed it. It sounds quite powerful, but we want it to be more fat, so we're gonna add some stabs on top. I added these stab samples from my sample pack, and I made them play the same melody as the main bass line. I'm just gonna add a small amount of mixing effects to make the stabs just a bit more powerful. I added EQ, OTT, another EQ, Camel Crusher, EQ, and a Fruity Stereo Shaper to make the stabs really wide in the mix, a bit wider than the main bass. This is the stabs without the mixing. And this is with the mixing. And this is what the bass sounded like before we added the stabs. And this is with the stabs. Now to add even more energy to the bass, we're gonna add a downlifter and a crowd sample that plays on every note in the bass line. This is without. And this is with. Now my friends, we're gonna make some distorted chords to fill out the drop. We're gonna begin with this simple Serum chord layer playing the chords. Then we're gonna add a second chord layer to make the chords more full. Guys, now we're gonna distort the crap out of the chords. We're gonna add OTT, EQ, compression and distortion with Camel Crusher, then a lot of Soundgoodizer to add power, and a lot of distortion with Fruity Fastest, then a final EQ to shape the chords, and lastly a Fruity Stereo Shaper to make the chords really wide in the mix. This is without the mixing. And this is with. We're also gonna add a Fruity filter with these settings to filter out some high frequencies as well as boosting the resonance. This filter makes the chords sound a bit ugly on their own, but it makes the chords fit a lot better with the rest of the drop. This is what the chords and bass sound like together. I added these lead shots on top to act as a sort of chord stab. And I also added these percussion sounds that play the same rhythm as the chords to make the drop a bit more snappy. This is what the full chords and bass sound like together, guys. Now let's quickly make a groovy drum pattern. We'll begin with a kick and a tom on top to add some rhythm and groove, and some claps. Then we're gonna add some rides and drop claps. A couple impacts. And lastly a glitch sample to get that Brooks sound. Now guys and gals, before I show you the final result, I would truly appreciate it if you checked out my EDM sample pack. Link is in the description. If you get the pack, you'll get 6 FLPs, 280 samples, and 150 Serum presets, all made for future house, bass house, slap house, and deep house. Here's a sneak peek of 2 of the FLPs from the pack.